say 7, y'all say days. Hunting for the cheese like a mouse in a maze. Been down all my life, mama thought it was a phase. Same OG, guess I'm stuck in my ways. Last night I had a dream.
Welcome to Neutral Voices Live.
Welcome.
Amazing show tonight.
Yes.
Listen, I have a question. We have so much content. Before we get into our show, I have a question. If you take your car to the mechanics when it's broken, you take your kids or yourself to the hospital when you're sick, where do you go when you're having a spiritual breakdown?
Supposed to be.
We're going to talk about the church. Before we get into the church, because we understand that there's so much to the church. First of all, we get it. The church is the people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The church is the building, the brick and mortar. So there's so much to it. But before we get into that, I want to dig into the pastor.
Okay.
The leaders of the church. And so everybody has their thoughts about what pastors should do. I want to read this because I don't want to miss anything, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
The traditional, so think about the traditional versus the contemporary. And then we know way back then it was a certain way, right? And then today, you know, we have pastors wearing jogging suits and gym shoes, and you know, and I feel like there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Right.
Let me get into this definition.
Okay.
Teaching, preaching traditional doctrine, caregiving, such as visitation, counseling, comforting, and taking care of the needs of the people. That's what everybody believes, right? Especially that visitation and counseling. Because if your pastor don't show up at the hospital when you know, getting ready to have surgery, somebody mad. Performing rites of passage, such as baptism, weddings and funerals, kissing babies and all of that. Administration, such as taking care of meetings, putting together a bulletin and developing programs for the church, and evangelism. Pastors doing a lot.
Yes.
And finally, serving as ambassador of the church to the community.
Okay.
Sounds like they got their hands full.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we understand what they're doing. Now, we can talk about some of the things, and I know some of the pastors out there are thinking, I hope they don't start bashing the pastor.
Okay.
This is not just about the pastors.
No,
this is not one-sided. Tonight, we're going to talk on both sides.
Right.
We're coming down your street, as my pastors say. Trust me. Let's talk about the laity. What are they supposed to do? The ministry of the laity is to represent Christ and his church, to bear witness to him wherever they may be, and according to the gifts given to them, to carry on Christ's work of reconciliation in the world, and to take their place in the life, worship, governance of the church.
Okay.
What side are you on? Don't forget, you can chime in with a comment or a question. What side are you on? I have been on both sides. And I can tell you, there's a lot of work when you're the leader of the house and you're in that, you know, pastoral role, or first lady, which Sister V worked for me just fine.
Dr. First Lady.
Yeah. So I just want to say I've been on both sides.
Yes.
So I get it. There is a lot of work, but you know, I started out talking about the church being a hospital.
Right.
And people should feel like they could come to the church if they're broken in spirit. And so whatever issues they're dealing with, they should be able to come to the house to get a spiritual fix.
Yes.
Well, but I can't say that's the case.
Well, I mean, you like you said, the church is a hospital. It's supposed to be. Because you should be able to get any spiritual thing that you can get out of it. And a lot of churches you can't. Because a lot of people, if you go talking to one person about what's going on, and 9 times out of 10, it gets back around.
Oh yeah, you mean as far as the
Therapy part of it.
right when you need counsel,
you need food, you
and
need
confidentiality.
things. And I think that's going out the window.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
and I think that happens, and Dr. V gave a great definition of what the pastor in his job title or duties are. But unfortunately, you know, some of the pastors right now, they're running these mega churches. They have 2,000 plus members. And then think about it. So you have to do that for 2,000 plus members. So sooner or later, jobs are going to have to be delegated. And I understand that's where the laity comes in, that, you know, a pastor is not going to type up his own bulletin nowadays. He's probably got a secretary and people to do that, even with going to visit the sick, you know, it's delegated. But a lot of times, you know, it gets lost in translation.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, you know, when you mentioned mega churches, one of the reasons why I personally don't like to attend a church when it gets just so gigantic is because I feel like I vanish, like I no longer matter.
Right.
You know, if I'm gone for 3 weeks at a time.
Don't nobody know.
Right. You know, and I happen to attend a smaller church and I love it because I want my pastor to say, you know, or just somebody in the church to say, where's Sister V? Has anybody seen Sister V or
know you by name, walk up to you and know your name and where have you been? Are you
absolutely.
okay?
And if I'm sick, I feel, you know, some sense of, you know, security in the fact that my church will be praying for me or my family even, you know, so that's the deal with the mega churches. But do you have a definition for the church or religion?
Well, the definition of religion, and I think a lot of churches now, and I'm not going to say a lot of churches, I think a lot of people get the confusion between the spirituality and the religious part. And the religion is just a body of people, a group of people, persons that adhere to certain laws, beliefs, and things of moral consciousness that they follow. You know, the moral compass should be the Bible, first and foremost, but people deviate and have their own set of laws and different things. Well, so that's the religious practice of it.
And because there's evil, there's negative religious
that sounds like a cult
practices.
in all respect.
Well, you can call anything a religion.
That's right.
David Koresh had a religion. Look how many people followed him.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring that out, because a lot of people, when they hear the word religion, what do you think they think about?
They think of the church.
They do.
Right.
But
the cross, the church, you know,
and that's why I say
Calvary.
you get the confusion, because a lot of people think that the church is just about religion.
Right.
And Miss Jill said it all. You can have a religion of anything. I don't know if many of you know, but in Indianapolis, in our own state, there's a church based on the principle of weed smoking. And they call themselves a church, and they fall under the they fall under the protection of churches.
Don't start looking for that church.
I was going to say, do we have the address of that church?
I want to go.
I'm just asking. I'm asking for him.
Gonna say that. See, you know, and that's why I'm saying, you know, so the church, when we get on this topic, it is so much. So many different angles, so much we can go into.
Yes.
And so you were making a difference. So from a religious perspective.
Yes.
And so then when it comes to the church,
yes, right.
You were gonna say something.
Like I say, a lot of people, I'm going to say people outside, they think religion is the church, but the church is based on the spirituality. It should be based on the spirituality. I'm not saying, because I don't go to every church, so I'm not saying what church is and what church isn't.
Definitely.
But it should be based on the spirituality. But a lot of people are just in the religious practice of it.
Right.
So do you believe that people should be attending church, the building? You believe that? Like, honestly?
Do I honestly believe that people should? Yes and no.
Okay.
And here's why I say yes and no.
What do you believe, guys, that's listening? I just want to make sure we can get some feedback from our viewers in this.
And as I'm answering, you can call in, or you can, leave comments.
Please do.
Whether you go to church or you don't go to church. If you don't go to church, why don't you go? If you do go to church, why do you go?
But your question, do I believe that people should physically go to the building? Yes and no. Yes, and here's why. You said the hospital, it's a healing. It's also a therapeutic group sometimes for people. You know, like people legitimately are going through things, and I'm not equating, so don't anybody get this mixed up. I'm not equating the church with AA or NA, but, you know, people go to these support groups, even grief support groups, to get help. Yes. And they want to be around people that can help in going through. So I think that's where church is. It's where it's that therapeutic, and I think people should get together and go there to have that, you know,
somebody that can relate to what they have been through.
Do you really truly think the churches of today is set up like that?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Some. I don't go to every church, so I can't say it.
I grew up, and I know me and you close to the same age. You got me by a couple thousand years, but when I was growing up, we literally, churches was open 7 days a week.
Yeah, right.
You had Bible study, you had choir rehearsal, you had this meeting, you had that meeting, and it was more of a family type of situation.
Yes.
Nowadays, the church is barely open 2 days out the week.
Yes. Well, you know, I can't say. I don't go to every church. I understand what you're saying, but we got a lot more we can get into.
I know
we
got so much to say. I just want to say, get right church.
We're going to get
right church
into all that.
Oh,
get right church.
Let's go home.
No, let's move on. That's what we go do.
We go.
So so here's a question for you. Actually, you kind of answered that with that first one, so I'm gonna go in a different direction here. So Clarence, talk to me about the ethics as far as the church ethics from that perspective.
Well, again, the church ethics come from the good book. That's where it should be.
All right.
And it should be based on you loving your higher power, then you loving yourself and your neighbor as yourself. Those are the things. Love is the main ethic. It should be in all churches.
Oh, so you mean ethics aren't your dress is too short, or you need to pull your pants up?
Well, those are our ethics. Those are the religious ethics. You know what I'm saying? And some churches, some churches in religion, again, don't allow women to wear pants. Some don't, they say you got to be dressed a certain way to come. But the Bible says come as you are.
I was going to say, so that kind of throws come as you are out the window, because don't come if you're pregnant and you're not married. Don't come if you're in a biracial relationship. Don't come walking through the door if you're not dressed right because you don't have any money. Don't come walking through the door if you're not going to put money in the basket when it comes around. So it's not really come as you are.
In some cases.
See?
If we're just being real.
That's why you have a choice.
Yes, that's why you have a choice.
But some people they will stay in those churches.
They will.
Because they like the pastor or they like the wife, but then that's where, what is the purpose? Why do people go to church? So that's where that gets watered down. My reason for being, especially at a particular church.
Yes. And some people are. Some people like you say, some people are followers of certain pastors. And, because think about these mega churches and where you don't have a personal relationship with these pastors. Why do you go?
How could you? How could you have a personal relationship?
To say that you go to Joel Osteen Church, the Creflo Dollar Church,
So it's basically saying they following the pastor, not the word.
Following the.
Some do, yes. Some follow the.
That's why I said the fame and the
right. A lot of those people, I feel like they're being worshipped as pastors. So there's where the worship is. I mean, people. You bring up Osteen.
Yes.
We were talking the other day that in one weekend he brought in $600,000 in one weekend for. Yeah. So I mean, who are they worshiping there in that case? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
So when we start thinking about the Word of God, some people will go to church for particular reasons. So some people actually will go to a church no matter what the situation is, if they're getting a good word.
Right.
And so, but when we start examining that, what does that mean? What does that look like? You're getting a good word.
I think it depends.
What is the word?
I think it depends a lot on the person. I mean, I think when we go to church, if you ask people, why do you go to church? I mean, I think it could be for a lot of different reasons. Again, I mean, if you comment, call us, let us know why do you go to church? I mean, we that's something that we want to hear from. So I mean, I think it just depends on what a person needs when they walk into that building.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I've seen people in church and they are definitely not focused on the word, but they are faithful. They will not miss in church every Sunday, but they go to church with their own agenda.
Right, so people can see.
I was just getting ready to say, so some people idea of going to church is just for show. So other people,
Right.
you know, or they can tell people I went to church.
I'm at
Sunday.
church. I went to church.
Yeah.
You go to church, what you talk about today at church?
Yes.
Well, he said,
And you ask about that good word, Dr. V, and that's something you have to take for yourself. And there's a lot of people that have eloquent speeches. But what's the substance of those eloquent speeches? Is it to fortify your life? Is it to satisfy your soul, your spirituality? You know, I can get up legitimately and give you a good word because I know good and big words and I can speak eloquently. I think.
Right.
But is it a word that is helping you? Is it something that is soothing to you?
And that word should be healing and comforting.
It should touch your soul. Like you should feel it.
That's what I was just going to say. That's the soul food, right?
Yes.
So Jill, for you, you know, when you think about church, you know, talk to me about, because don't you believe the church is you?
I do, and I want to go back to the point when we were talking about the people or the building. You know, when Jesus says, I will build my church, I don't think he was talking about the construction of the church, because you brought up a good point. People go to church so they can be around each other. People can be around each other anywhere. God doesn't hang out in an empty church and wait for people to come. God is, the presence of God is where people worship, period.
But you know how many people say, oh, oops, I said a bad word in this building, but they will walk right out, but not understanding the bad word is already
can the empty building worship on its own? No. But people can worship anywhere. So the church, obviously, I mean, there is a building. There is a building, but the church is the people.
Yes.
Period. Because you cannot worship, you cannot feel the presence of God together as a unit. You can feel it anywhere.
So people need to understand that the sanctuary is where you make it.
Right.
When you decide that you're going to invite God in.
Right. And a lot of people, if you go to church and you found a church that you love and that's where you feel the Spirit, that is absolutely amazing. But not everybody worships at church. They don't. A lot of times where I felt the most closest to God, I was not in church.
That's why I was saying, so wherever you are, and that's why the Bible says where two or more. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be 100 people.
Right.
But the Bible also says, forsake not yourself as far as the assembly.
Right.
So as far as that goes, so that's when we have to look at that and say, okay, so, you know, a lot of people say the Bible contradicts itself, you know, but, you know, when you start looking at that, you can understand why is it that we need to be around people? What is that about?
Right.
Clarence, you kind of talked about it because of that relationship.
Yes.
So a lot of times we need to realize that, you know, it's not about the religious part. It's about the relationship. It's about building that.
Right.
You need that to be strengthened in God, in your decision to seek a higher power and to worship.
And we say it all the time. I mean, there's strength in numbers. I mean, you can feel the presence of God anywhere alone, but when you are with a group of people and everybody feels it, it's like nothing. It's like no other.
So let's talk about the presence of the church in the community, because you hear a lot of complaints about where is the church and this happened. Where's the church? The church is too quiet. I've even said the church is the sleeping giant. What do you think?
Well, I was told the church was a cornerstone of the community.
This is what it's supposed to be. And I mean, we're the city of churches, but.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like they don't want to step out their comfort zone and talk and come to the neighborhoods.
Okay.
And actually come out of the building and really embrace the neighborhood.
Tear the walls down.
Yeah,
come out
they don't
amongst us.
They don't want to. Whatever is in their building, that's what they're cool with.
And now, what do you think caused that? Is it because they have become CEO instead of pastor for some churches?
They're pastor CEOs.
Exactly. I'm just saying. So you know, when you start looking at that,
yeah, they'll send out their second and third minister and send them out, which is nothing wrong with
but that makes them visible. So
But the main part is he's the head leader. Why he's sending his two out and why he's not?
Well,
going
he's
out with
he's the
CEO.
Well, he's the shepherd.
Well, the shepherd. I'm gonna ask you a question.
He rules.
Who do the sheep listen to? Who do the sheep listen to?
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Who do the sheep listen to? The shepherd, right?
Yeah.
So if the shepherd is not gonna go out and have his sheep is not gonna listen.
And let's just remember this and keep this thought in mind that we're not talking about all churches,
right,
of course. And we're not talking about one particular denomination.
Right. No.
We're talking about as a whole
body of baptized believers. That's what the church is.
Exactly. So Clarence, I just wanted to kind of turn things over to you because I know you have a different thought as far as the churches and their visibility in the community.
Yes.
And I've heard you talk about it before. So, just let your hair down all the way and talk to us about what do you feel about the church being visible in our communities?
I feel that there are, and let's state this for the record. There are active churches that's out there doing things in the community. Let's state that for the record. But the problem is they're in the minority right now. There's not a great number of churches. And I'm not talking about Baptist churches. I'm not talking about, the quote unquote black churches. I mean, if there's a church in a community, in a neighborhood, that particular church, Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, a Muslim mosque, whatever that church is in that community should be serving that community. But let's look back. In the civil rights, and even prior to civil rights, when we were going through in our leadership and we had to get our meeting and we had to get our togetherness, it was the church that gathered the people together, that brought people together. They even marched out of the churches in Selma and all of that. But that is not today. The church, I don't see the activism in a lot of churches right now. Again, there are some out there. There's many out there that's doing it, but they're in the minority now. Again, as you stated, Dr. V, we're talking about the whole conglomerate of churches.
Right.
If you're in that neighborhood, if there's something going wrong in that neighborhood, the churches in that neighborhood, be it no matter color or denomination, they should be helping that neighborhood.
I want to bring up something too, and a lot of people might not be familiar with this, but the Amish Mennonite Church. This is my hometown where I grew up. I've been to these churches. These Amish churches are not held in a church. The people in the community, in the sector, have it at their homes. There's nothing fancy there, but let me tell you about community involvement with the Amish churches. The church is their home insurance. The church is their health insurance. If somebody is sick, they're going to be taken care of. If your house burns down, they're going to be out there rebuilding it the next day.
That's right.
Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. It's just your church. It's serving, loving, caring in your community. It is community like I've never seen before.
And that's what the church should be. They should be just like that Mennonite, and it should be all one community helping and looking out for each other out there in the battlefield for each and every one of us.
Right. The money they give goes in a fund to help people in situations like that.
Yes.
I mean, it's just crazy. It's amazing.
Okay,
it's awesome.
so let me just take it here. So we understand that there is a divide. We feel it. A divide as far as the community and the church. And I mean, let's just get down to the nitty gritty. What is it? What is going on? Why aren't the people in the church? Why is it that maybe you don't want to go to church on certain days, or maybe you don't even belong to a church? What is the truth? Let's help the pastors that may stumble across this message, this episode. Let's help them understand what is it that's missing. Why are the men at home and more excited about the sports that's going to happen, the games that's going to come on Sunday? Why are they there and not in the church? Why is the church filled with more women than men when the men are the ones that's supposed to be leading our families? And not understanding that if the men would get up, get to church, be the leaders that they are called to be the head of the household, lead those young men, their sons, to God. Those young men will lead their friends because they can influence, and then we can change the trajectory of our communities moving forward. What is going on for real in our communities?
You want this one?
From a man perspective, yeah, I would like to hear your perspective.
You want to hear my perspective?
Yes,
go
from a man perspective.
All right, I'm gonna give you the honest to God truth. I do go to church. I don't go all the time, but honestly, it's a lack of leadership.
You feel like that?
It really
a lack of leadership.
It's a lack of leadership.
Okay.
It's a lack of men, pastors. Honestly, the only reason I go to church, my pastor put his cloak off and sat down and talked to me man to man.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't talk to me as a pastor. He didn't talk to me, and just throw out a bunch of verbiage. He talked to me man to man.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
Okay.
And these pastors are not doing that. They have their select few that they're homeboys.
Because they got a lot to do.
I understand that. Well, I mean, hey, if you have a lot to do, and there are a lot of strong men just sitting at home, wouldn't mind, but it's just like, nah, bruh, you as worse as me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We need those men. We need them to come into the churches so that the pastor actually, so that he can teach them and mold them like you're supposed to do with sheep.
First of all, he have to start off as talking to them man to man.
Which you can't even talk to a pastor at some of the churches.
Yeah, some of these churches you can't.
Because they're untouchable.
Right. And you said they have a lot to do. Well, that's because it's become so commercialized and it's turned into a business. So instead of being the pastor, they're the president of a company.
Yeah, they're all CEOs. So it's just like, nah, if you can't sit down and talk to me as man to man, take your cloak off and sit down and talk to me.
Okay.
I really don't have no use for you, because if you're just gonna hit me with scripture after scripture and act like you better than me,
okay,
because you're a man of God, you're a preacher or whatever.
So we have please comment, because I hear people all the time talk about the church. They talk about the church in a negative way. Some people do talk positive because they see what their churches are doing from day to day. And so I know our church is very active with different things in the community and giving and helping families and et cetera. And even asking people, who asked this question, what do you need? Are there any needs in the house?
What do you need? Right.
You know, those are the types of things and questions that we expect to get from our church leaders. So, but if we take it a little bit further than that, let's talk about, the pastors at home, they on the tube, right? I can just stay at home in my bed.
Yes.
Bedside Baptist.
We did that too.
And Reverend Pillow is the best.
All the other denominations.
Reverend Pillow is the best.
So let's talk about that.
Well, for many years, think about it, even pre-COVID, let's understand the situation where we're in right now, the anti-gathering sentiment, for health reasons and things such as that. But pre-COVID, think about the ministry going to TVs and, different things. And more people decided, like I say, because you're not going to notice me in a church of 2,000-3,000 people anyway. So I can just sit at home and get the same, message and, feel fulfilled, I guess, in the same way. Now, I do go to church, so, but think about it. You said it, Dr. V, you're in a mass of 3,000 people and you want to feel welcomed and you want people to know who Dr. V is. But you're in a mass of 3,000 people. So why fight those 3,000 people when I can watch the same pastor on the same Sunday, get the same message, sitting at home in the comfort of my home?
That's true, but I'm thinking about, I believe there's a lot of excuses that people make. If we just keep it real, because I've heard people, they don't even want to go to church on Sunday when it's Communion Sunday. They want to miss that one because they don't want people looking at them, when they decide that they don't want to take it. Because they trying to, stay sanctified and holy in that sense that, they don't want to touch the blood.
But a lot of,
and so they don't want to go on that particular Sunday, or they don't want to go because, they know what they did last night. And people don't understand that that is the healing place. We need to change that. We need people to know. We need everyone to know that those are the people that need to be in the church. Well, the people that are broken and that's going through.
Right. Things. I think you bring up a good point with the technology, too. A lot of times we think that hinders people, but really, in reality, 42% of millennials attend church. So things like online church, things that make it easier for people to attend. I mean, that's not always a bad thing. If we want people to worship, we need to accommodate people in order to worship.
That's it. You just hit us with some stats.
That's
what
a valid point.
That's good. I'm glad you mentioned
that's less
that.
than
We
half.
have some more statistics. Let's make sure people understand. We're just not up here talking.
Right.
We want people to actually be picking up what we putting down.
Right.
So let's make sure they understand that we have some strong facts here. So you guys got some facts, then feel free to throw them in there. Right now, I just want to say this one thing. One of the things that really bothers me, I do attend church. I've been in church for a long time. One of the things that bothers me, though, and not just about my church or anything like that, but just in particular, churches. People judge you when you're not seen. So I don't like that people don't respect the fact that God has given us individually a ministry. And they don't respect your ministry, because sometimes a pastor could talk you down and make you feel bad because you missed 2-3 Sundays, and they don't understand that your work or your ministry has called you to something else.
Right.
It doesn't mean because I'm not there that I stop loving God on this particular Sunday. Or you wanted to add something?
He raised his
Okay,
hand.
go
That's a
ahead.
big deal. That's a whole big deal.
Let him speak.
I am
Let
a
him speak.
teacher,
He
but
rose
not
his hand on that
tonight.
one. You pricked the nerve on that one.
Okay.
Oh, Lord. I'm going to say, and that church I attend to, I was over the men's ministry. At this particular time, I had a job that, some days I had to work Sundays, or I worked a 12-hour shift and I was on third. So, I would miss because, hey, bro, I'm tired. I ain't worked 12 hours all week, and this is the only time I can get a little sleep in. But I never would miss my men's meeting. I will always conduct my men's meeting, and it trips me out, and I'm still doing the things that I need to do for my men's ministry and for the work that I was appointed to.
Yes.
And the older guys in the men's ministry came to me. It's like, Brother Eric, you missing too much church.
Wow, the elders.
Yeah. We don't feel that you taking this seriously.
Oh.
Okay. I'm not taking it seriously, but I put out the guideline, the schedule out for the year.
See,
and I already posted it all up, got it all written down, got it.
now
and
you
gave
got to
it to
prove. You got to prove yourself.
Prove yourself.
Yeah, but I have proved myself by doing 2 or 3 events just for men.
Right. Because you turned into the employee for the business instead of part of the...
But mind you, I have to tell them I do still have to work. You guys don't work.
That's my point. And that's one of the reasons why, and I understand that. And so I just wanted to open that up, because that is one of the reasons why some men don't even want to go, because then they don't want to be judged on the days that they can't be there.
Yeah, and it
because you're watching people too close. I had a lady, when I was visiting a church, they were so, I'm going to say, out of control in a good way. They were praising and knocking people wigs off, and you know how they do, and they're having a good time, a merry good time, kicking shoes off and everything, and that was beautiful. Well, I tried to get in there, and I wanted to get my my little groove going, and the lady said to me after church, she said, "Sister V," she said, you almost had it." She said, "Now just keep coming, and you're going to get it. You're going to be able to do that just like we do it." That's what she said. And I can't say the name of that church, but I don't go to that church anymore.
That was probably it. That was probably it.
And, but my point is, when you say elder, there's certain things that people can say to people visiting a church that will make them not visit again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have to be careful of how you judge people.
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as their attire and things like that.
Right.
Once they forget. Once they get to, they remember, they'll know they've been Christian or they've been going to church all their lives. Yeah. And, I did this. And half the time you forgot before you was into the church.
Yeah, you forgot.
You was into the club.
You used to be something
other than what you are now.
Yeah.
And that's wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and again, I know we can talk about this. We can go forever and 3 days on this.
It's so much.
But all in all, we want to remind everybody, we're not particularly talking against the church or trying to bring the church down. What we're saying is that the church is an integral part of every community. Every community, the church is an integral part. What we're saying is that we need, if you're going to be in the community, we need, as you want the people of the community to support you, we need the church out there supporting the community.
Yes.
If there's a problem, homelessness, violence, whatever is in your hunger, whatever's in your community, the church, and not only just the pastors, but the whole body, and I'm not talking black church, I'm not talking white church, I'm talking the body of the church, needs to be out there serving that particular community and doing work in that community. Everybody, to make it, if we want to make it better, we got to work together.
Right, and if your church if you don't go to church or you're not happy with what the church is doing, well, ask yourself, what are you doing? You can go out there and be the church anywhere. You can go out and rake leaves and be the church. You can feed people and be the church. People need to step up also and be the church that they complain about. The church, what do you want the church to do? Then go do that.
Right. The church body is no stronger.
Yeah, we have to be held accountable for that.
The church body is no stronger than its leader.
Right, exactly.
And our duties are to love God and to love our neighbors. Right?
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do in order for us to bridge the divide. We have to begin to do a work, and that work starts with good people. When good people rise up and have a voice, and they put their voice on something, and they bring awareness to it, and they put it on the table like we're doing, that's what's necessary. Right. You have to get it. You have to get that ball rolling so that we can begin to build. And together, yeah, the community and the church. Jill, you got something awesome for us?
I do. When Jesus said, "I will build my church," I will never believe that he was talking about construction of the building. Though a church is a building, without the people and the love inside of it, it is just a building. The way I see it, you don't come to church to worship a building. You come to church to worship God. Many people worship in their own way. For some, that includes attending church every single Sunday in person. For others, maybe they're watching it online. But church isn't the only place to meet God. Worship is a process, not always a place. It is the feeling of intimacy with God wherever you may be. Some people feel they're closest, they're most present with God at 3 a.m. when they're down on their knees praying for a miracle. Some feel his presence when they are driving to work. Some feel they're closest to God wherever they are. This tells us that church is everywhere. It is everywhere that we are. With that being said, we speak often about what churches are not doing. But if we, the people, are the church as we say we are, then what are we as people doing to be the church? We speak of how the church needs to answer society's call. But at what point does society, the people, answer society's call? Today, there is a resounding cry bellowing in our streets for someone, something to address the pain, hurt, injustice, and the anxiety that is plaguing America. We can put the pressure on the church, or we can apply the same pressure to each other to step up and be the church. Every single thing we do is an act of worship. Worship with what you have. Worship with all that you are. There is never a wrong place to feel the presence of God. Worship where you are.
Yes, that's great.
Wow. All I can tell you, we need to be united in mind, in voice, and in deed. Thank you for joining us. This is Neutral Voices. See you next time.
When I say 7, y'all say days. Hunting for the cheese like a mouse in a maze. Been down all my life, mama thought it was a phase. Same OG, guess I'm stuck in my ways. Last night I had a dream.